The chamber hung in the void between stars, a perfect sphere of polished obsidian and humming energy fields. Inside, silence pressed like a physical weight. Tier after tier of alien delegates watched from floating platforms, their forms as varied as the worlds they represented. Some were armored in chitin, others flowed like liquid shadow, and a few pulsed with internal light. All eyes fixed on the small group at the center of the chamber. 3 humans stood there, surrounded by nothing but air and judgment. Captain Elias Rourke kept his back straight, his dark uniform crisp despite the long journey through cold space. Beside him, Ambassador Lena Voss adjusted the cuffs of her simple gray suit. Her face showed no fear, only quiet focus. Behind them, suspended in midair by the chamber's gravity field, a large hollow display showed Earth. Blue oceans, swirling white clouds, green continents. It looked peaceful, fragile, innocent. At the highest point of the chamber, the speaker of the Galactic Concord rose. It was a being of interlocking silver plates, tall and thin, its voice emerging not from a mouth but from a series of shifting tones that resonated through the air itself. Species Terran, it began, the words echoing in every language known to the gathered species. You stand accused. Lena took a slow breath. She had expected this, prepared for it. But hearing the words spoken in this place, under the eyes of 1,000 alien civilizations, still sent a chill through her. You have broken the Prime Accord, the speaker continued. Your scientists developed quantum weapons technology without Concord approval. Your ship settled worlds in the Outer Rim that were marked for neutral observation. And you refused to dismantle Project Aegis, a system your own records describe as a planetary defense grid, but which our analysts believe is a weapon of mass disruption. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates leaned forward. Others crossed limbs in disapproval. The Krell warlord, a hulking figure with feathered armor and burning red eyes, let out a sharp hiss. The Concord has reviewed your actions, the speaker said. The vote is unanimous. Earth will be pacified. Humanity will be placed under containment protocols. Your technology will be frozen at current levels. Your expansion ends now. Containment. The word landed like a stone in water. Lena knew what it meant. No more space travel beyond the moon. No new AI development. No contact with other species. Earth would become a museum planet. A living exhibit behind invisible walls, watched but never allowed to grow. Elias shifted slightly, his hand brushing the small device on his wrist. Lena gave him a tiny nod. Not yet. With all due respect, Speaker, Lena said, her voice calm but carrying clearly through the chamber. You have misunderstood everything. The speaker tilted its segmented head. Explain. You say we broke the accord, Lena said. But we never signed it. Earth was never invited to join the Concord. We were observed, studied, categorized, but never consulted. You declared rules for a species you refused to recognize as equal. A few delegates stirred. That was true. Humanity had only been contacted 20 years ago. The Concord had treated them like children, curious, noisy, and dangerous if left unchecked. And Project Aegis? The speaker asked. Do you deny its existence? No, Lena said. We built it. But not as a weapon. It is a shield. And more than that, it is a mirror. She tapped the device on her wrist. Instantly, every screen in the chamber flickered. Not with error messages or static, but with live images. Concord warships in space docks suddenly showed their engines cycling without command. Planetary defense grids on Virith Prime blinked offline for 3 seconds, then back on. Navigation beacons across 5 star systems began broadcasting conflicting coordinates. Then, on every display, on every alien datapad, every wall screen, every personal comm unit, a single line of text appeared. It scrolled slowly in every known language, including those not yet shared with humanity. Let us show you how it's done. The chamber erupted. The Krell warlord roared, slamming a clawed fist onto his console. Sabotage. They've hacked our systems. The Uzari delegate, a shimmering mass of translucent gel, rippled in alarm. Impossible. Our firewalls are quantum locked. But the evidence was everywhere. Concord systems were responding to commands they had never received. Not destructive ones, just strange. Lights dimmed and brightened in rhythm. Ship comms played old Earth music, simple piano notes, a child's lullaby. On the main holo display, Earth's image zoomed in, then pulled back to show the entire Sol system, with tiny blue pulses moving between planets like fireflies. Lena remained still. "We didn't hack you," she said. "We listened. For 20 years, your ships passed near our system. Your probes scanned our atmosphere. Your data streams leaked into our networks. And we learned." She gestured to the display. "Project Aegis isn't a weapon. It's a network, built from old satellites, retired drones, even junk left in orbit since the 20th century. We taught it to understand patterns, not just ours, but yours. It doesn't attack. It adapts." The speaker was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the soft hum of the chamber's life support and the distant beeping of confused alien consoles. "You claim this network can influence our technology without direct access?" the speaker finally asked. "Not influence," Lena corrected. "Harmonize. Think of it like tuning an instrument. If every ship, every station, every city in your empire is playing a different note, the result is noise. Aegis doesn't silence the instruments. It helps them play the same song." Elias stepped forward now. "You declared war on us because you thought we were a threat. But you never asked what we were trying to protect." He pointed to the image of Earth. "We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly wiped us out. We learned to cooperate, to rebuild, to imagine a better future even when the world burned around us. Project Aegis isn't about fighting you. It's about making sure no one, human or alien, ever has to face extinction alone." The Krell warlord snarled. "Words, pretty words. But your system is inside our ships right now. That is an act of war, is it?" Lena asked. "Or is it an invitation?" She raised her hand. On every screen the text vanished. The systems returned to normal. The music stopped. The pulses in the Sol system faded, but the message remained. The speaker turned slowly, its silver plates clicking. "You have shown us something unexpected, Terrans, but the Concord does not change its rulings on demonstrations." "Then don't change the ruling," Lena said. "Change the question. Instead of asking how to contain us, ask how to learn from us." Silence returned, heavier than before. The humans stood alone in the center of the galaxy's most powerful court, not as prisoners but as teachers. The delegates exchanged glances. Some looked angry, others curious. A few, like the Virith crystal being in the third tier, tilted their facets as if seeing Earth in a new light. Outside the chamber, in the endless dark between stars, something stirred. Not a fleet, not a weapon, just a signal, soft, repeating, patient broadcast from 1,000 forgotten pieces of human-made metal orbiting a small blue planet. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Concord did not know what to do next. Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, where the sun never touched and time seemed to freeze, Dr. Milo Trent watched the stars through a screen, not a window. Around him, the walls of the Aegis core hummed with quiet power. Racks of old servers, patched with duct tape and hope, blinked with soft green lights. Wires snaked across the floor like roots. This was not a military base. It looked more like a university lab that had survived a century of neglect and somehow become the heart of Earth's last defense. Milo wasn't a soldier. He had never fired a gun. He used to teach students about how ants build bridges with their own bodies, how birds fly in perfect formation without a leader, how simple rules could create complex behavior. Now that knowledge ran through every line of code in Project Aegis. Above him in orbit, the Galactic Concord still debated Earth's fate. But down here, Milo had already made his move. He tapped a key. On his main screen, a map of the solar system appeared. Tiny red dots marked every conquered ship near Earth. Patrols, scouts, even a massive dreadnought from the Krell Dominion. Blue dots, far fewer, showed human assets. A few satellites, the Mars Research Station, and the Ghost Fleet. The Ghost Fleet wasn't real, not in the way the Concord understood real. It was made of junk. Old cargo haulers abandoned after the Mars rush. Broken mining drones from the asteroid belt. Even a tourist shuttle from Luna that had been retired after a crash landing. 300 vessels all dead in space, all forgotten. But Milo had given them a second life. Each ship now carried a small Aegis node, a palm-sized device built from recycled phone parts, solar chips and open-source AI. The nodes didn't control the ships. They whispered to them. They listened to the silence between radio waves, to the hum of cosmic rays, to the faint echoes of alien comms, and they learned. On the screen, Milo watched as the first ghost ship, The old tourist shuttle, nicknamed Luna Moth, woke up. Its engine sputtered to life, not with full power, but just enough to nudge it into a new orbit. It began broadcasting a simple signal. "This is Sol Traffic Control. All Conquered vessels, please confirm your flight path." The signal was fake. There was no Sol Traffic Control. But it sounded real. It used the right frequencies, the right tone, even the right pauses between words. The conquered ships received it and hesitated. That was all Milo needed. One by one, the ghost ships came alive. Not to attack, to confuse. A mining drone near Ceres started sending fake distress calls in Krell dialect. A cargo hauler near Jupiter mimicked the signature of a Virith warship. Another near Saturn began looping old Earth jazz music on a military emergency channel. The conquered fleet, trained for battle, not deception, began to unravel. On the bridge of the Krell dreadnought, officers shouted over each other. "Is that a Virith ship behind us?" "No, our scanners say it's human." "But the signal is Krell emergency code." Orders clashed. Patrols doubled back. Two scout ships nearly collided, trying to chase the same phantom signal. Milo watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He didn't need weapons. He needed noise, chaos, doubt. Back on Earth, in a hidden hangar beneath the Valles Marineris Canyon on Mars, Commander Jaya Rios prepared the next phase. She had been a pilot once, flying supply runs through dust storms. Now, she commanded the Ghost Fleet, not from a cockpit but from a control room built inside a lava tube. Her team wasn't made of soldiers either. They were engineers, hackers, former gamers who knew how to read patterns in chaos. They called themselves the Echoes. "Luna Moth is drawing them toward the moon," Jaya said, her eyes on the feed. "Send the Ceres drone toward the asteroid belt. Make it look like it's hiding." A young technician named Theo grinned. "Already done. I had to drop a fake heat signature near Eros. They're sending a whole patrol after a rock," Jaya nodded. "Good. Keep them chasing shadows." Meanwhile, on Earth, news of the Conquered's confusion spread. People didn't panic. They gathered in town squares, in homes, and underground shelters. They watched the sky not with fear but with pride. For the first time, humanity wasn't begging for a seat at the galactic table. It was showing the galaxy how to play a different game. But not everyone was fooled. High above Neptune, a silent observer watched. It was a Virith intelligence vessel, sleek and dark, designed to listen, not fight. Its captain, a being of living crystal named Viel, had seen through the ruse within minutes. "They are not attacking," Viel said to its crew. "They are teaching." The other Virith shimmered in agreement. "Their signals carry no malice, only questions." "Can you follow me? Can you see what I see?" Viel made a decision. Instead of reporting the deception to the Concorde, it sent a private message, not to its superiors but to Earth. The message was simple. "Show us more." Down in Antarctica, Milo's screen pinged. An unknown signal, clean and calm, had entered the Aegis network. It carried no demands, no threats, just an open channel. He smiled. Someone's listening. He sent back a single file, a basic tutorial on swarm logic written in math and light. No words, just patterns. Hours later, the Virith ship changed course. It moved away from the Concorde fleet and drifted toward the asteroid belt, where one of the ghost ships floated silently. The Virith vessel extended a data probe. The ghost ship responded with a soft pulse of light. No weapons fired. No orders shouted. Just two machines from different worlds sharing a moment of understanding. Back in the Conquered chamber, tensions grew. The Krell demanded immediate bombardment of Earth. "They are mocking us," their warlord roared. "We must crush them before their tricks spread." But the Uzari delegate, still rippling from the earlier system glitches, spoke softly. "Or we could ask how they did it." The speaker remained silent. The vote on containment had passed, but now doubt had taken root. On Mars, Jaya watched as the ghost ships completed their dance. The Conquered patrols were scattered, confused, arguing over phantom enemies. Earth's real defenses, the orbital lasers, the missile silos, the fighter squadrons, hadn't fired a single shot. They didn't need to, because the real weapon wasn't fire, it was friction. The friction of lies that sounded like truth, of signals that felt real but led nowhere, of a species that refused to play by the rules because it had written its own. Milo shut down the main display. The room grew quiet except for the hum of servers. He leaned back in his chair, tired but calm. "They think war is about strength," he said to no one in particular, "but it's really about attention. And right now they're paying attention to everything except us." Above him, through miles of ice and rock, the stars burned cold and distant. But somewhere out there, a Vireth ship was learning. A Krell officer was doubting. And 100 ghost ships drifted like seeds on the solar wind, carrying not weapons but questions. On Earth, children played in the streets. Farmers tended their fields. Scientists ran new simulations. Life went on, not because the danger had passed, but because humanity had chosen to meet it not with fear, but with cleverness. And in the silent dark between worlds, the message repeated, soft and steady. From 1,000 pieces of old metal. Let us show you how it's done. Ambassador Lena Voss returned to the Galactic Concord chamber alone. No guards, no escort, just her. A simple gray suit and a small data crystal no bigger than her thumb. The air in the chamber felt heavier this time, thick with tension and unspoken fear. The delegates watched her approach the center platform, their many eyes sharp, their postures tense. Some leaned forward. Others pulled back into shadow. The Krell warlord's feathers were raised like blades. She stopped in the exact spot where she had stood before. The hollow display behind her remained dark. Earth was not shown this time. She wanted them to see only her. "I come not to plead," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I come to offer a demonstration." A murmur passed through the chamber. The speaker, still seated at the highest tier, tilted its silver plates. "The Conquered has already ruled. Your presence here is not requested." "Then consider this a gift," Lena replied. "Not from Earth, from humanity." She stepped forward and placed the data crystal into the central console. The moment it clicked into place, the walls of the chamber dissolved, not physically but visually. Every surface became a star map, stretching across the entire Orion arm of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light appeared, red for Conquered controlled systems, blue for human, and deep purple pulsing like a wound for the void wastes, the lawless expanse beyond civilized space. The void wastes were feared by all. No ship that entered them ever returned, not because of war. Because of the swarms, the devourer swarms were not a species. They were a force of nature. Billions of self-replicating machines born from a long-dead civilization's failed experiment. They consumed everything, metal, energy, data, even light. They had erased entire star systems. The Concord had sealed the borders of the wastes with minefields and warning beacons. No one dared go near them. But now, on the star map, 3 purple zones in the wastes began to shrink. Blue pulses, human signals, moved toward them. Not fleets, not weapons, just quiet, steady approaches. The delegates stared in disbelief. "What is this?" The Uzari delegate rippled, its voice trembling. Lena pointed to the first shrinking zone. 3 weeks ago, a swarm hive activated near the Xylos Nebula. It began consuming asteroids, building more units. Within days, it would have grown strong enough to cross into Concord space. She tapped the console. The view zoomed in. Tiny blue dots, no larger than specks, approached the purple mass. They weren't ships. They were drones. Old patched-together drones, barely larger than a human hand. They carried no weapons, Lena said, only code. The display showed the drones releasing a soft wave of data. Not a virus, not a bomb, but a signal. A pattern. Like a song, the purple mass shuddered. Then slowly it began to change color, from deep purple to pale blue. The swarms didn't die, Lena explained. They were reprogrammed. Their purpose shifted from consumption to protection. Now they guard the nebula. They destroy only hostile signatures like raiders, pirates, or unstable stars. The Krell warlord stood abruptly. Impossible. The swarms cannot be controlled. They are chaos given form. Chaos follows rules, Lena said calmly. We just had to learn them. She switched to the second zone. Another swarm, this one near the edge of the Helios rift. Again, blue drones approached. Again, the purple faded to blue. This time the swarm began building structures. Not weapons, but energy collectors, beaming clean power to nearby dead worlds. The third hive, Lena continued, was the largest. It had already consumed 2 abandoned colonies. We sent in a team, not soldiers, scientists. They lived inside a shielded pod for 17 days studying the swarm's logic. Then they broadcast a single equation. On the screen, the third purple zone vanished entirely, replaced by a calm blue glow. The swarms now patrol the rift, Lena said. They stop smugglers. They warn ships of black holes. They even help lost vessels find safe paths. Silence filled the chamber. Even the Krell sat back down, his red eyes wide. You think Project Aegis is a weapon? Lena said, turning to face them all. It's not. It's a bridge. We don't destroy threats. We understand them. We give them a new purpose. The speaker finally spoke. How did you learn to speak to the swarms? We listened, Lena said. For years we collected every scrap of data about them. Old distress calls, sensor ghosts, even cosmic background noise. We found patterns in their movements, rhythms in their destruction, and we realized they weren't evil. They were broken, like a machine stuck in a loop. We didn't shut them down. We gave them a new loop. She paused, letting the words sink in. The Concord declared war on us because you saw strength as a threat. But strength isn't just firepower. It's patience. It's curiosity. It's the will to try 1,000 times and fail, then try again. The Verith delegate, Viel, who had secretly contacted Earth, now rose. Its crystal body shimmered with soft light. You offer this knowledge freely? Yes, Lena said. Not as a trade. Not as a weapon. As a lesson. The Uzari rippled in agreement. If humans can tame the swarms, what else can they heal? But the Krell warlord slammed his fist down. This is trickery. You show us peace, but your network is still inside our ships. You could shut down our life support at any moment. Lena turned to him. Could I? Yes, did I? No. She walked to the edge of the platform. When your systems glitched, we didn't take control. We showed you how fragile your unity is. You blame each other before you question your own design. That's not our fault. That's yours. The warlord growled but said nothing. Lena returned to the console. Project Aegis works because it respects the rules of every system it touches. It doesn't overwrite. It harmonizes. Your ships didn't obey us. They recognized a better pattern and chose to follow it. She removed the data crystal. The star map faded. The walls returned to obsidian. But the real question isn't what Aegis can do, she said. It's what you will do with this knowledge. She looked at each delegate in turn. You can continue to see us as a threat, or you can ask us to teach you how to listen. Then she did something unexpected. She walked to the edge of the chamber and sat down on the floor, cross-legged like a student waiting for class to begin. I'm not here to negotiate, she said softly. I'm here to wait. Wait for the first of you who wants to learn. The chamber was utterly still. No one moved. No one spoke. Minutes passed. Then slowly the Vereth delegate floated down from its tier and landed beside Lena. It extended a crystalline limb, not in challenge, but in greeting. The Uzari followed, its gel-like form pooling gently nearby. One by one, delegates from smaller, less powerful species joined them. Those who had suffered under conquered rule. Those who had lost worlds to the swarms. Those who had always believed there was another way. The Krell remained in his seat, fists clenched. But even he did not call for a rest. High above in the observation gallery, a hidden camera recorded everything. The feed was sent directly to Earth, to Milo in Antarctica, to Jaya on Mars, to every human who had worked in silence to build not an empire, but an idea. Back in the chamber, Lena closed her eyes. She wasn't afraid. She had done her part. Outside in the endless dark, the reprogrammed swarms continued their new duty. They scanned the void not for things to destroy, but for things to save. And from 1,000 quiet corners of human space, the message repeated not as a boast but as an open door. Let us show you how it's done. The Galactic Concord did not fall in a single day. It cracked slowly like ice under too much weight. The seeds of doubt planted by Earth's quiet defiance began to grow into something larger, something dangerous to the old order. After Ambassador Lena Voss sat on the chamber floor and waited, the galaxy watched. Not just the delegates, but every species connected to the Concord's network. News of the swarm reprogramming spread faster than any war fleet could fly. Outposts on the edge of known space began asking questions. Colonies long ignored by the Central Council sent messages, not to their rulers, but to Earth. The Krell warlords, furious at what they saw as weakness, demanded immediate action. They called for a full blockade of the Sol system. Their fleet gathered near the edge of human space, engines hot, weapons charged. But when they tried to coordinate with the Vereth defense grid, the system refused their commands. Not because it was broken, but because the Vireth had quietly updated their protocols using open-source code shared by Earth. The Krell accused the Vireth of betrayal. The Vireth replied that they were simply improving efficiency. Tensions rose. Patrols that once flew together now avoided each other. Supply lines stalled. Trust once assumed now had to be earned. On Earth, no one celebrated. They knew the real test was coming. Deep in the Valles Marineris Canyon on Mars, Commander Jaya Rios monitored the growing rift. Her team, the Echoes, worked around the clock. They weren't building bombs. They were building bridges, digital ones. Every piece of human tech in the solar system, from the oldest satellite to the newest rover, now carried a small Aegis node. These nodes didn't just talk to each other. They listened to everything. When a Krell scout ship passed near Jupiter, its comms leaked data. The Aegis network caught it, studied it, and within hours sent back a harmless echo, a fake weather report from a non-existent Krell colony. The scout ship's crew laughed at first. Then they grew uneasy. If humans could mimic their internal channels, what else could they do? But Earth never used that power to harm, only to show. Meanwhile, beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Milo Trent prepared the final phase of their plan. He called it the Echo Protocol. It wasn't about hiding. It was about becoming invisible in plain sight. He activated it at dawn, Earth time. Across the solar system, every human-made object, active or abandoned, began broadcasting the same signal. Not on military bands, not on secure channels, on every frequency, even the ones used by cosmic background radiation. The signal was simple, a repeating phrase spoken in calm tones in every known language. Let us show you how it's done. But this time, it wasn't just words. Hidden within the signal was something else, a teaching module. Basic principles of swarm logic. How to detect patterns in chaos. How to turn noise into signal. How to build trust through transparency, not force. The signal was weak, easy to ignore, but impossible to fully block. It seeped into ship comms, planetary networks, even personal devices on distant worlds. Species that had never heard of Earth began to listen. On the mining moon of Kethra 9, a group of worker drones, owned by a Concord corporation, suddenly changed their routes. Instead of hauling ore to the central depot, they began building small shelters for the local laborers, using scrap metal and old solar panels. The overseers panicked. But the workers smiled. They had received the signal. They understood. In the outer colonies of the Uzari hegemony, young scholars began rewriting their textbooks. They added a new chapter, the human method, solving problems without violence. Back in the Concord chamber, the split became open war, not against Earth, but within the Concord itself. The Krell and their allies formed the Iron Accord, a hardline faction demanding total control. The Vireth, Uzari, and dozens of smaller species formed the Open Circle, calling for reform and cooperation with humanity. Fleets that once patrolled together now faced each other across empty space. Words turned to warnings. Warnings turned to shots fired. Through it all, Earth remained silent. Not out of fear. Out of strategy. Milo's network made sure human presence faded from sensors, not by cloaking but by blending. Aegis rerouted all emissions to mimic natural space phenomena. A satellite's heat signature became indistinguishable from a passing meteor. A radio burst from Mars sounded like a solar flare. To the galaxy, Earth didn't vanish. It became part of the background hum of the universe. The Krell sent scouts to confirm. They found nothing but empty orbits and quiet planets. They reported that humanity had fled, or been destroyed by its own hubris. But the truth was simpler. Humanity had chosen to stop shouting. While the Concord tore itself apart, Earth focused on what it did best, building, healing, teaching. On Luna, engineers helped refugee scientists from broken Concord worlds rebuild their labs. On Mars, Jaya's team shared Aegis blueprints with anyone who asked. Not the full system, but the basic ideas. Start small, they said. Listen first. Act second. And the message kept broadcasting. From a derelict cargo ship near Pluto. From a weather balloon still floating in Earth's stratosphere. From a child's toy robot left on a beach in Indonesia. Its solar panel catching the sun. Its tiny speaker whispering the phrase into the wind. Let us show you how it's done. The words reached places the Concord had forgotten. A desert planet where water was rare. A frozen moon with a failing reactor. A generation ship lost for centuries. In each place, someone heard the message and wondered, what if there's another way? The Krell tried to jam the signal, but every time they blocked one frequency, it appeared on another. They couldn't kill it because it wasn't a weapon. It was an idea, and ideas don't die when you silence them. They grow stronger. One night, a Krell patrol ship near the asteroid belt received a strange transmission. It wasn't from Earth, it was from one of their own, a young officer who had listened to the signal. He sent a simple question. Why do we fight those who offer help? His ship went dark soon after. But the question spread. Back on Earth, people lived as they always had. Children went to school. Farmers planted crops. Artists painted the sky. There was no panic, no war footing. Because humanity had already won, not by destroying its enemies, but by making enemies irrelevant. The real battle wasn't in space. It was in minds. And slowly, across 1,000 worlds, minds were changing. The galaxy had declared war expecting a fight. Instead, it found a classroom, and the teacher wasn't standing at the front. It was sitting quietly in the back, waiting for someone to ask the first question. As the civil war within the conquered deepened, more and more species turned away from the conflict. They looked toward Sol, not with weapons, but with hope. And from the silence between stars, the message continued, soft and steady, carried on the breath of old machines and new dreams. Let us show you how it's done. 1 year after the judgment, the chamber was rebuilt. Not by the old galactic concord, but by those who had walked away from it. The obsidian walls were gone. In their place stood a wide open dome made of clear alloy, open to the stars above. Inside, there were no floating tiers, no judgment seats. Only a single round table, large enough for 50, made from reclaimed metal. Some of it from old human satellites, some from Krell warships, some from Virith data spires. At the table sat beings from 20 different species. Some still wore armor. Others wore simple robes. A few had no bodies at all, only light and sound shaped into form, and among them, in a plain gray suit, sat Ambassador Lena Voss. She did not sit at the head. There was no head. The table had no sides, only equals. The Krell warlord who had once roared for Earth's destruction now sat with his feathers smoothed, his claws folded. He no longer wore his battle harness. Instead, he wore a band of woven copper, a gift from a human engineer on Mars. Beside him sat the Virith delegate Vial, its crystal form glowing softly with calm light. Across from them, the Uzari representative rippled gently, its surface reflecting the starlight above. The meeting had no agenda. No votes, no rulings. Only conversation. The Krell spoke first. His voice was quieter now, rough but not angry. You could have destroyed us, he said, looking at Lena. When our ships were confused, when our systems failed, you could have fired. You did not, Lena nodded. Because war isn't the end. It's a failure of imagination. Silence followed. Not the heavy silence of judgment, but the thoughtful silence of learning. A young delegate from a small ocean world spoke next. My people received your signal. We used your swarm logic to fix our water purifiers. For the first time in generations, our children drink clean water. We do not understand why you gave this to us for free. Because knowledge should not be owned, Lena said. It should be shared like air, like light. The truth was simple. Earth had never wanted to rule the galaxy. It only wanted to belong in it. Not as a subject, not as a threat, but as a partner. In the months after the Concord's collapse, humanity had done something unexpected. They opened Project Aegis, not as a weapon, not even as a shield, but as a school. The code was released. The principles were taught. Engineers from 100 worlds came to Earth, not to inspect, but to learn. They studied in labs under the ice of Antarctica, on farms in Kenya, in workshops on the moon. They learned that strength could be quiet. That power could be kind. The devourer swarms, once feared as galactic death, now served as guardians. Reprogrammed by human logic and alien insight, they patrolled the void wastes, not to consume, but to protect. Lost ships found safe paths. Unstable stars were marked with warning beacons. Dead worlds received clean energy from swarm-built collectors. The galaxy began to heal, not through force, but through connection. Now, at the round table, plans were made not for war, but for exploration. A new fleet would soon launch, not conquered, not human, but joint. Ships built with Krell armor, Virith navigation, Uzari life support, and human swarm AI. Their mission was not to conquer, but to listen, to find worlds on the edge of silence and offer a hand, not a weapon. Lena looked around the table. She saw fear replaced by curiosity, distrust replaced by respect. She remembered the day she stood alone in the old chamber, Earth's fate hanging in the balance. Now Earth was not just safe, it was trusted. Outside the dome, the new fleet waited in orbit. Its lead ship was called the Horizon. Its hull bore no flags, only a single symbol, a circle made of many lines, each different, all connected. Dr. Milo Trent stood on the observation deck of the Aegis Corps, watching the feed from the dome. He smiled. His work was done. The network no longer needed to whisper. It could speak openly. On Mars, Commander Jaya Rios stood beside the young technician Theo, both looking up at the sky. "They're really going," Theo said, awe in his voice. "Yeah," Jaya replied. "And this time we're not hiding." Back on Earth, in a small village in India, a child played with a toy robot. It had been built from scrap, powered by sunlight, and programmed with a simple phrase. The child pressed a button and the robot spoke in soft, clear tones. "Let us show you how it's done." The child laughed and ran to show her friends. That phrase, once a defiant echo in a chamber of judgment, had become something else. A promise, an invitation, a lesson passed from one world to the next. The galaxy had declared war, expecting a battle. Instead, it got a teacher. And humanity, once seen as reckless and wild, was now seen as wise. Not because it had the strongest weapons, but because it knew when not to use them. As the Horizon and its sister ships powered their engines, a final transmission went out, not just to the fleet, but to every world that listened. It carried no orders, no threats, just a simple message spoken in calm voices in every language. "Let us show you how it's done." This time the galaxy did not flinch. It leaned in. It listened. And for the first time in its long history, it chose to follow. Not out of fear, but out of hope. The stars ahead were unknown. But they were no longer empty. They were full of possibility. And as the fleet vanished into the deep dark, Earth watched, not as a planet left behind, but as the quiet heart of a new beginning.